Guys, welcome back to Rock and Roll Rugby, and today's one I want to talk about injuries. So we just got the news that Roman Ntamack has been ruled out of this World Cup with an ACL injury. Now, that is a huge blow if you understand France type rugby and how much they depend on that player. They've pretty much been playing him as fly-off for the last year, and kind of Jellybear has not been getting that much time, which now forces them to really give Jellybear a lot of play time. And then looking at a third fly-off, they are a bit in trouble. We've seen this happen with the likes of the depth with the Springboks as well at that 10, on that 10 jersey. And the bigger question for me then is asking the question, is it worth it having so many warm-up matches before the World Cup? Now, initially I thought, look, it made sense to have a lot of warm-up matches to get your combinations right and all of that. But the more I'm starting to look at it now, I'm asking the question, you look at teams like France, they are playing, games week in, and it's test match type rugby. It's games against the likes of Scotland, 2 games now. It's tough test match rugby. And you're just bound to get some injuries. They still got a few tough games ahead until the World Cup, and playing every single week, France. So I know they're at home, so maybe they feel more comfortable playing at home, but it is strange that they've booked themselves so full of games just before the World Cup, not thinking there will be the risk of injury. So I understand for some coaches, they will say, we are strong enough and well enough prepared that we've already figured out our combinations. We do not have to play every game before the World Cup. An example of that is the approach that the All Blacks took, where I think they're off now for 2-3 weeks before they're going to be playing against the Springboks, and that's the game just before the World Cup starts. So, understandably so. But not putting themselves through too many tests, running much less of a risk to have injuries. So imagine now, a big heavyweight like losing the likes of Ntamack. There's also Duan van der Merwe that was also taken off, that they have questions if he's going to make the World Cup. So you just go look at Scotland. You go look at the likes of France. And let's say we get some more injuries, an injury from Ireland, maybe from the Springboks some more, because they already lost as we know, Lucanio he's still quite a while away from recovering from that injury. And you look at someone like the All Blacks that will pretty much, they have recovering injury players they've called up, but as much as current players, they pretty much have no injuries. So for them, I'm talking about injuries that happen with the warm-up matches. So for them, they're going with a pretty good, solid team that's prepared for this World Cup, that's got a full squad. Questions. Is this really a good idea to be playing so many warm-up matches before World Cup? Now, I understand some teams need it, the likes of the Springboks, which kind of have been caught a little bit because of some depth in certain positions, especially, and now France suffering from the same issue, just before World Cup, losing scrum-offs and fly-offs is one of the worst things. And if you don't have enough depth in those positions, it can really put you at a disposition. And this is what we're finding here now with France. And even the Springboks to an extent. We know they've got Handré Pollard that they say they're lining up, but apart from him, there is definitely not the depth. Now, for me, the question then would be that, was this really a good idea from so many countries to be playing so many games just before the World Cup? We know England's suffered the loss now of Jack van Poortvliet, which is pretty decent player on scrum off, also due to injury. The guys mainly knee injuries, ACL injuries, that type of stuff. It's serious type injuries just before World Cup, and to be out for 6 to 8 weeks with an injury is so easy to have, and that is your whole World Cup pretty much gone. And even if you want to be looking at guys coming in towards the latter part of the World Cup, yes, they're still not totally game fit. We see that's the issue now of Pollard. And then you find that as the other guys start coming back in, are they really ready? Have they played under that type of pressure for a while? So yeah, man, I'm just asking the questions. You got another guy, Cyril Bay, is also in question for this World Cup, and it's all the result. Van der Merwe, Cyril Bay, Intermark, said Van der Merwe. All these guys is due to the big tests that they had between France and Scotland, and it was amazing to watch. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. It's been beautiful rugby, awesome test match rugby, and it's put a lot of question marks around, how good is Scotland or how good is France for being the host, and what's their shot to win it. But with the set came bone-crunching rugby and injuries, and now suddenly, are you now not at a disposition, especially being France, and even to an extent if Scotland loses Van der Merwe, by going and playing such tough matches before the World Cup? I'm just posing the question out there, guys, because I think now starting to look at all the injuries coming in from all the countries. Now, a lot of the coaches will say, yeah, we prepared for this, that's why we've got depth. But with them saying that, it's simply just not that easy in certain positions. You just don't have the depth sometimes to say, you can afford it. With the likes of fly-offs, certain specialized centers, specialized type of props, hookers, you're running a big risk if you have injuries on these top players. So for me personally, I'm like, hold on, I wonder if it's such a good idea to be having so many warm-up matches just before the World Cup. Maybe give yourself 2 at max and then say, this is what we have to deal with. Then play week in, week out, and thinking you might not lose some of your star players. And the lost year of Intermark could be, I know a lot of people will say, and fans will say you can't say that, but the loss of Intermark in that team could be the decider in the latter part of this tournament between kicks missed and put through in place kicking, or just general gameplay between a win and a loss, maybe against the likes of the All Blacks or Springboks or someone down the line, that might be the difference, so that's just what I'm saying when I'm looking at this, and I'm saying, is this worth it? The reward versus the risk, is it really worth it? Now guys, if we just look, we still got 2 weeks left before the warm-up matches are all done and the guys are just going to be in the World Cup, starting with the World Cup. Let's just have a look at some of these matches that's still to come. So, we can see here on Wednesday we've got Tonga and Canada. That's the smaller games, but not smaller games, but second-tier teams. I want to really be getting to games like, you can see here South Africa playing Wales. In my opinion, that's needed because just of their situation they're in. But then you got Ireland and England. England's with their backs against the walls. I'm sure it's going to be a tough game. England's been totally disappointing so far in these warm-up matches, and they'll probably want to just bring everything at it. If they get another, England's already lost from Portfleet. If they lose 1 or 2 more players, those guys are playing under tremendous pressure at the moment, the English. So they lose one or 2 more players. Are they even going to be competitive? Maybe they don't even make it to the quarters, So, going on their big games there, you still got France playing Fiji. So France keeps going with the big games. Don't write off Fiji. Fiji is a type of team in this World Cup that might upset someone like England or one of these other teams and go through. So, you've got the likes of a Fiji that's still playing France, very physical. Fiji's on the up. They'll rate themselves to give France a hell of a go. Could that mean more injuries? Then, of course, the big one we're all worried about, if you're a Springbok supporter or you are a All Black supporter, I'm worried about it. For me, for both teams, I guess, because I do not want to see one of these 2 teams going to the World Cup with injuries, especially in key positions, because we want to see the best rugby at the World Cup. How can we see the best rugby at the World Cup if we go have our own mini World Cup warm-up? Because this is really what it is. It's a warm-up World Cup. And the problem with that is, why go play yourself against the very, very best just before World Cup? I know it is to challenge yourself, but at the same time, maybe just Match it up with, I like the idea of a South Africa versus Wales, but the idea of All Blacks versus South Africa 1 week before the World Cup, risk of injuries, it just doesn't make that much sense to me. I would have rather said play, the likes of Wales or lower tier teams maybe, just to keep yourself, match fit, but at the same time, don't go for games like against Japan or Italy. But don't go for those huge ones where you're just looking at injuring yourself. I mean, then you still got Spain and Argentina, which I'm sure it's also still going to be a huge games. And then then still after that, you got England versus Fiji. I mean, England again running the risk of more injuries. Scotland and Georgia. Georgia boys are big guys. And then Ireland versus Samoa. I mean, just before the World Cup. You go pick one of the most physical teams ever to be played just before the World Cup. I don't know, man. And then, of course, the very last one. I mean, France versus Australia. So again, the question there is, was Australia clever just like the All Blacks to not play too much before the World Cup? Now, France playing Australia. France full on playing every single week. Surely that's to their detriment, in my opinion. Guys, you tell me what you think. If you enjoyed this video and my comments in it, hit the subscribe button below, guys. Please, I'm going towards the 2,000 subscriber mark. And every single one of you matter to get me there. And if you enjoy this content, why not just support me? Anyway, thank you for watching like always, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, bye.